We have the footage.
I think you're muted, Keith.
And good evening, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody again, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down below for anybody that wants to share some love. And of course, there's a StreamYard link down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. I'm dropping it again just in case. And I have to agree with Snaps. We have the footage. And what we do have is Paths to Freedom, folks. The link to their channel is down in the details section as well. And we're going to review a couple of the videos they put out as it relates to the same kind of information that I'm trying to help you guys with. And we're going to see how much we correlate. And again, just like yesterday's video that we started out with, I may or may not agree with everything that's said precisely, but it's going to correlate quite well. And I'll be able to give my objective view on what's being said. So hopefully that'll help us get a better perspective so we can discern for ourselves. Because I don't want you to believe me. I don't want you to believe the neighbor. I don't want you to believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. And certainly don't believe the video we're going to watch. Do your research. No matter what, folks, do your research. The more we do research collectively as a whole, the better perspective we're going to get as a whole to see what's really true and what's not. And that's the best perspective to have. That's the best way to get to a discerned truth. Because like we all know, everything has some kind of truth in it. And if we can start objectively viewing things and finding out what's true and what's not, by viewing as much as we can, that's what we're meant to do, is observe. Let's start doing it. So with that, we're going to get into it. You got anything you want to bring tonight to the table tonight real quick before we get started, John?
Nothing yet, Keith.
All right. Well, feel free to go ahead and speak up and ask me to pause. Always appreciate you being up here. And again, folks, the StreamYard link's down there for anybody else that wants to join. Let's go here. And again, it's Discharge That Shit 2.0, Paths to Freedom. This was the first video, excuse me, wrong video. This was the first video they did, Discharge That Shit. 4 hours and 16 minutes is what we're going to be looking at. So we're going to be doing this over the next day or two at least. And then we've got the second video that's like another 2 hours and 45 minutes. Total of about 7 hours worth of videos. And like I said, folks, a lot of this stuff, and it looks like she's got links down here for various other things as well. She's got things, people are time stamping things, so easily kept track of for notes. They're already doing a great job. And like I said, I may or may not have the same viewpoints or anything like that. And when I come across things that I might have an objection to or a better explanation or something like that, I'm going to speak out. So feel free to do as well, John.
Okay.
But I'm gonna make sure y'all have everything it is that y'all need to know. So the legal definition of discharge under banking, because we all know who've been in this for a minute, that depending on what title you're in, depending on if you're using a USC, a CFR, the definition could be different.
And that's what we spoke about last night, the different grammars from that video. So this is already falling right in line.
Bank, we are going to be using banking terms. So the legal definition, the banking term, is debt discharge is the cancellation of a debt due to bankruptcy. When a debt is discharged, the debtor is no longer liable for the debt, and the lender is no longer allowed to make attempts to collect the debt.
So what happens in a credit collections case when the original creditor sells the debt? There's a discharge from the IRS. That's in the records. They got a tax write-off. It's the same process, different wording. The debt was discharged. Why? Because it was sold off. Like I said, if you're a creditor on one side, you're also a debtor on the other side. So while these guys are claiming creditor, on the other side of the book, it's going to say debtor. Remember that AO Form 430? It says the defendant is the creditor. So let them claim that they're the creditor as a plaintiff.
Yep. And they need certified evidence, right, Keith?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I was talking about with the validation of debt. See, they're supposed to have a handwritten statement of your consent to even communicate with them. That's called a certification. That's what a handwritten statement of intent is. Just like the motor vehicle operator's lease. You have to have a handwritten statement of intent that you're going to use that motor vehicle at least 50% of its use for the trade or business that you're in, whether it be a job employment application or as an independent contractor or as an actual agent or officer of a state, federal, or municipal entity whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. All commercial. And you have to have an oath of office. That's the fatality of the United States citizenship. It's got an intent, but it's never fulfilled. Very rarely, I'll say. Well, no, I can't even say that because, again, remember, folks, there is no birth registration in the United States. So what it poses and in reality are two different things. It has no actual nationality. It's a corporate entity, and everything under it must be considered of like kind. Property acquired from outside of the United States is therefore not of like kind. 26 U.S.C. 1031. Exchange of real property for productive use or investment. That's what happens at that spell of illness. So let's continue on. And I hope it doesn't continue doing this.
Due to the fact that the entire world has been up under bankruptcy since 1933, everything is supposed to be discharged.
And what she's talking about here, again, if the United States is a bankrupt organization, and all they can do is issue military script. See, they can't issue coin and stuff of the people anymore. They got rid of the gold clause, right? And then the silver. So now they're using promissory notes. Because they're bankrupt, they can't have assets until they clear the bankruptcy. As long as we do not comprehend that nationality was a conference of a gift and treat it as a gift for the full faith and credit and learn how to operate that currency, we'll be stuck in the fiat currency of all the paperwork, the battle of the forms.
They got rid of banknotes too.
Absolutely. That's what remember, folks, that's what the birth certificate's all about. You look at that birth certificate and find writing somewhere down the bottom, it's going to say something about American Banknote Company.
Technically, everything is discharged. The bank. Discharges every last one of our debts every single year. They do it quarterly. And then they have to turn in the previous year's forms by March the
God
31st of that next year. For example, all of the debt.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to play this.
Car contracts, bills that you paid last year, they had to
Yeah, I'm gonna go out and refresh and come back and see if that doesn't make a difference, guys. So hold on, let me drop this link. I see Russ is down there. Anybody else that wants to come up, please feel free. Would be great to have everybody up on panel. A lot of good opinions and stuff is what I need, other objective viewpoints. So please feel free. In the meantime, I'm going to duck out real quick and refresh. Be right back, guys. Okay, and I am back. Make sure everything is working right. Get my screen back up. Okay, let's try this again real quick. Yeah.
Discharge that debt. Filling out a 1099-C form through the Treasury Department by March 31st. Unfortunately, because we have signed over fiduciary duties to the bank. If you look at any of your contracts, not only
And this is what she's talking about without that proper signature. They take that as a beneficiary instrument themselves, and you're presumed to be the trustee because you gave a unqualified signature. It's that simple.
it said you give them security interest. It also said
Yeah, you
that you
gave
can
up.
keep the proceeds.
Yeah, you
You don't
gave
believe
up
me, pull
all.
one of your car contracts.
Yep, rights, titles, and interests to the property. You
Or
didn't.
pull your any contract. It will say that you gave them the option to keep the proceeds. Because you were not understanding or you didn't read it. We all know that they use different type of
And that's why I qualified that statement on that sales agreement at the local emergency room at the hospital when I found out I had cancer. It says right on it to the effect that the customer agrees to make third-party payments so long as it's understood that the credit is given to the customer's account. It's a perfectly concise statement that clearly states the intent.
language on us to make it appear that we owe something that we truly don't. So everything is automatically discharged. Creditors cannot collect on discharged debts. Period. It means that no one may make any attempt to collect.
So again, what's basically being said here is if they take that debt and they resell it, oops, it's discharged. It's the same thing. You can't run around. That's privateering. Holding the one party that doesn't know what's going on liable for everything else that's being done in malfeasance and unconscionable contracting.
Yeah. And they have to go right to the IRS, I think,
Yeah.
directly, right? Debt collector.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's the thing that's missing. See, the states are doing this through a resale in the interest of the state, and they're not placing the interest of the United States in there just to clear the debt. So as long as they can resell it, they're going to get funds from that, deposited in a general account, of which then the federal government matches. Why would they give it to the interest of the United States who's going to discharge all the obligations? They're in it for profiteering. It's a fact of the system, folks. You can't make a profit unless you accept the losses of another man.
From the debtors personally. For example, creditors cannot sue, garnish wages, assert a deficiency. That's your credit
Wow.
report, where they're saying you're late, or otherwise try to collect from the debtor personally on any discharged debts. Creditors cannot contact you by the phone, mail, or on any otherwise in any attempt to collect the debt. Personally. Creditors who violate this order can be required to pay debtors damages and attorney fees.
And before we go any further, I'm going to show you this one here. This is 15 U.S.C. 1692C, communication in connection with debt collection. And remember, we discussed the definition of communication in 15 U.S.C. 1692A. And that says communication is the conveyance of a debt. So a communication, conveyance of a debt in connection with debt collection. No shit. Okay? So any communication is a connection with a debt collection. Okay? And it says a communication with the consumer generally without the prior consent of the consumer. And remember, this is another term. You're not the consumer. Remember the protocols. The post office protocols, you're the customer for all things posted, right? Given directly to the debt collector or the express permission of a court of competent jurisdiction. A debt collector may not communicate with a consumer in connection with the collection of any debt at any unusual time or place. That's even through the mail. So not at my address, not at my device, any device. Device. Card, plate, coupon book, or other device used to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. You ain't supposed to be communicating with me and calling my credit a debt. Or a time or place known or which should be known to be inconvenient to the consumer. Or a time or place known or which should be known to be inconvenient to the consumer. It's not inconvenient if you're the one claiming to be the resident United States citizen, residing at your general principal place of business, right? In the absence of knowledge of the circumstances to the contrary, a debt collector shall assume that the convenient time for communicating with the consumer is after 8 o'clock ante-meridian and before 9 o'clock post-meridian. If the debt collector knows the consumer is represented by an attorney with respect to such debt and has knowledge of or can readily ascertain such attorney's name and address, unless the attorney fails to respond with a reasonable period of time to communicate from the debt collector, or unless the attorney consents to direct communication with the consumer, or at the consumer's place of employment. If that's your principal place of business and you've got a job, either one of them would be a place of employment. Funny how that works. If the debt collector knows or has reason to know that the consumer's employer prohibits the consumer from receiving such communication. You know how to be your own employer? You ever think about being self-employed and being careful to maintain good works that are profitable unto men? Communication with third parties. Customer agrees to pay third party expense, pay for third party as third party, so long as it's understood that credit is given to the customer's account. So you name the species, whether it be money, property, labor, or services, and I get credit for it, one way or another. Even if it is of a military necessity for the Army, its use, its safety, and the safety of its operations. Except as provided in Section 1692B of this title, without the prior consent of the consumer given directly to the debt collector or the express permission of a court of competent jurisdiction. Now, I want to remind you again, if it was a court of competent jurisdiction, they'd have been able to make a final judgment based on a validation of the debt. Yet the record shows a default summary or default judgment based on a summary judgment that has never been finalized, or as reasonably necessary to effectuate a post-judgment judicial remedy. A debt collector may not communicate in connection with the collection of any debt with any person other than the consumer. The consumer is the record, folks.
Yeah, and attorneys aren't allowed to collect debts either, Keith.
Right. See, the individual's name and number identify a record, folks. So for the purpose of this section, the term consumer includes the consumer's spouse, parent, if the consumer is a minor, guardian, executor, or administrator. That's a state creation. Okay? That administrative law judge is administrating an estate that's in probate. And that's merely the record. He can't administrate a living man. A living man, his yea be yea and his nay be nay. He just has to know how to speak it, coin your words or purse your lips. Again, it's a matter of distinction between the American citizen and the United States citizen in those aspects. The customer from the consumer. The customer is the one that can customize things. That is the actual living being. The consumer is the one that uses the things. That would be the person. And everything's done in person, folks. They're always asking for a signature. That's the signature of a person. That person belongs to you. You are not the person. His attorney, a consumer reporting agency. You know how to report things? If otherwise permitted by law, the creditor, the attorney of the creditor, or the attorney of the debt collector. Without the prior consent of the consumer given directly to the debt collector, or the express permission of a court of competent jurisdiction. A court of probate has no jurisdiction over the estate of a person who is in fact alive. Scott versus McNeil. And greetings, 5 Speed. Sorry it took so long. I wanted to make sure I got through that.
Greetings, brother.
Everybody else, and greetings to everybody else down in chat. I appreciate your support. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button, folks. So what's going on, Russ? What do you think so far?
I just jumped in a few minutes ago. I got in here a little late, but yeah, a resignation with me. I mean, we all have I think an equal obligation to one another.
Well, yeah, that's what the equal consideration is. And the best consideration, again, going back to give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give unto the Father what belongs to the Father, that's bringing to the forefront the reality of, if you want equity, you got to first bring equity. So if you want to owe no man anything, recognize that they don't owe you anything either. In that, if they've given you something, give something back. always be willing to be the first one to give. And I assure you, no matter what you got to give, I don't have a whole lot to give, but what I do give, it's my all. And when it's done and said with, everything else I might end up with, it's not mine either. I'm just using it. You need to use it, go ahead.
Absolutely.
You know, this thing about ownership has gotten ridiculous. If you want to think about the ownership again, I've got to look at you the same way I think he thinks of me. And that is, I fear not, for he is my redeemer. He's the one that called me by name. I'm his. So if I'm his, and I am to owe no man anything but to love one another so I can fulfill the law, and fulfilling the law is to love my neighbor as myself, I've got to recognize you as a child of God as well. What's a greater authority? Neither one of us. So why are we arguing with each other?
You know, and I mean, that very principle that the land isn't for sale. So how could you own anything that wasn't for sale?
Exactly. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. The only thing that belongs to Caesar on that gold coin is the image. And it came from God too. So take it back and give it back to God. Melt that fucker down and put on your image. It's equal consideration. Don't you have the ability to put your image on there if you wanted to? I don't suggest it, but you know.
Right. I know what you're saying.
That's the principle of giving unto Caesar. Everything originally comes from God. Even Satan came from God. I think it's kind of easy to defeat Satan anymore. I don't even think about it much. It's one of those things. Like I've said before, people ask me, "Well, Keith, why do you follow such a hard path?" And that's the only one I know. So let's try this again and see if we get something different. I'm gonna check my signal here, so I might drop real quick, but I'll be right back.
Okay.
So for now, some of you that is on here that has been doing this for a minute, I know you're like, why is
Wow.
she saying the debtor and I am the creditor? We are the creditor. We are the creditor. We are the debtor. We're the beneficiary. We wear all of those hats. But in the same token, if the United States is responsible for all of the American
God.
people's debts, why do you want to be a creditor? Just ask yourself that. If they're responsible for all of the American people's debt, why do you want to be a creditor? There are certain circumstances where we are creditors.
Again, perfect correlation here. You're the customer. You're the one going to customize all of their common documents, their general documentation, military fiat.
During the times that we are creditors, that it's like if we're in court, when we're assigning the judge as fiduciary. Okay.
And that's acting in the capacity of a
But
creditor.
when we're dealing with contracts, promissory notes, certificates,
Again, all glory goes to him.
FRNs, AK, floating rate notes, we are considered the debtor. So don't get confused, because I know you guys hear a lot. We are the creditor. And we are to an extent. In order for you to be able to understand how to move through their system, you need to understand what system they're operating out of. Everybody out of the Constitution, they rewrote the Constitution. The Constitution is not for us. Everyone uses the United States Code. I did at one point in time too. We're not up under the United States Code. We're not even up under the CFRs. We are under the Emergency Banking Act of 1933.
I don't know what to do, guys. You want me to keep going or what?
So why is always some
That's
type
up
of
to you,
emergency
brother.
going
I'm
on? Whether it's
catching
Ebola,
bits and pieces in between it.
Well, and like I said, we could always, everybody, the link's down in the details section. So everybody, I still urge you to, watch it on your own, rewatch it until you get it. And like I said, I agree with a lot of what's going on here. And though I might have been able to give some opposing viewpoints, that would be the only thing that would be missed. But you would still be able to develop your own. Channel Fuzzy 75 says, yeah, keep going. So we'll go ahead and keep going. And Channel 3 says, can we turn down the helium a little bit? So I think he wants us to slow it down a little bit. But that's why I sped it up, because it's kind of stopping and stuttering all the time.
whether it's coronavirus, whether it's the sky ain't green, blue today, whatever. They keep us up under emergency in order for us to continue to be able to use the FRN. The FRN is only for the Board of Governors, and we are not the Board of Governors. The Board of Governors have 7 people that sit on that board, and it is not any of us. So if y'all ever heard somebody say you're the Board of Governor, you're not. We are actually considered an enemy of the state because we are using
Pay attention.
FRNs, and lawfully we're not supposed to.
You hear that? Using FRNs unlawfully. We're not supposed to be doing that, folks. That's at 12 U.S.C. 411. Then Federal Reserve notes, by that definition, are defined specifically for transfer agents. You're not a said transfer agent. I don't care what the rest of that code even says. And for no other purpose are allowed by transfer agents. You are not a transfer agent. Greetings, King El Bay. How you doing tonight?
If anything, you're a pass-through, aren't you?
Absolutely. Like I said, it's the American that the currency passes through. And it's got to pass through the United States Department of Treasury, IRS, the Secretary of State, Bureau of Vital Statistics, Department of Commerce, according to that the birth clerk that initiated everything.
Hey,
and that's
I'm
the
sorry.
true currency. Greetings. Go ahead.
I was trying to get, because it was running in 2 different times and it was having an echo.
Yep. So what's going on, brother?
I've been looking at some documents. I got this subjugation of rights document. As the more I look at this, I think you have to study this with the scriptures. Like now, I think I'm taking the Bible taking the New Testament, the Old Testament, and the Quran, and I'm studying this out with all 3 texts, and I'm getting a better understanding. I think our role is supposed to be an investor. They're bankrupt, so they don't have any assets.
Exactly.
So we got to give them assets as an investor and then we have an interest, and then we got to show evidence of that so we can be what they call a treaty investor, so that we can discharge and offset this and even utilize our own script, which
Yes.
would be, or that we can utilize off our own bonds.
That's
So
that tax treaty, the international tax treaty. Freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union.
so when you start studying I think we have to study all three books because they took pieces of all three. And I don't think you can just study one book. I think you have to study all three books to get a clear understanding. You have to, because they're using pieces of different parts. Because I find stuff in each book, and I'm like, man,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, that's that Isaiah 54 verse 17 I spoke about last night. No tongue shall prosper against thee. Thou shalt rise up against those that place judgment and condemn them. This is the inheritance of the servants of the Lord and their righteousness of me. So when we think about that, we're not supposed to be, bearing false witness on our brother or anything like that. That's that false judgment. Pure and simple.
And I was reading this subjugation document that I got, right? When you go into court, they must validate that there is a true debt. They don't do that.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was saying earlier about, if there's only a default judgment, then there still sits a presumption on the table. So that presumption means that the debt wasn't validated, and that's why they couldn't give a final judgment. And therefore, if there's no final judgment, then how did they execute the judgment? It's only a default judgment. It's never been validated.
And then another thing that I've been looking at, when they operating off of the presumption, they got the presumption of fact, and then they got the presumption of law. So they're working off those two presumptions. So
Right.
the issue, remember when you informed us that we got to go to the Treasury offset?
Yep.
So when you go to the Treasury offset, and then I got another document too, but I'm gonna finish this up. The Treasury offset will give you the information to verify if you owe a debt.
Yeah.
If you indebted to the United States, they'll show you, because I got something back from them. Because I couldn't get in contact with them over the phone. I had to mail them. I had to contact. I had to do a whole bunch of stuff. It took a while, and then all of a sudden I got something in the mail. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like it took a long time. So they sent me a document, and it was saying I don't have no debts. You know what I'm saying, under that. So a lot of times what they're doing when you go into court, you are acting as a trustee, and they saying that you have an obligation and a duty, and they put the trustee role on you, and you wasn't never trained to do hold no public office, to perform any public function, and they making you have the liability for something within because they never confer certain things to you. So they're utilizing one of the things under the doctrine of property and pledges, and it breaks down like territorial and personal property in which is being used. So, and what is explaining that how territorial property, how territory and how the person have to submit to the territory with his personal property. So the property that we supposed to be giving them, like he's been teaching, it's like we're giving them our label. They're supposed to give us the credit. We're supposed to get what they call the cash equivalent to that is credit. So we
Right, and that's that section 2 of the Libra Code, folks. Go ahead, brother.
If you do a masterpiece with some of this information, you do a masterpiece. And I don't, sometimes I think, people want to get into this, but you have to be real astute and constantly studying. I study so much, and I
Oh,
know
yeah.
you study so much. That's all we do.
Well, that's the goal of it, because again, folks, if you can give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day. But if you can teach him to fish, then he feeds himself for a lifetime. But the ultimate principle behind it all is that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So you're supposed to continue sharing that knowledge. Even after you learn something, you're supposed to share that talent. Go 4, 3, 5 talents, come back with 10. That's how you prosper in abundance. You expand your talents by sharing them with others, and they share yours. All venues. And it should come natural. We're supposed to be social people. We're supposed to get along and enjoy presence of other people. That's what makes us comfortable, because we know we don't want to live in this fucked up world alone. It's just that we have this psychotic view of who makes us comfortable. It's sickening sometimes. But anyway, let's see if we can get this to play again. I'm having a hard time with my signal on my end, so I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So let's take a look again. Yeah.
So when you hear the enemy of the state trading with the enemy act, that is why we are considered enemies of the state.
And that's why I mentioned 50 U.S.C. 4305B2, full acquittance and discharge. Remember the different definitions of discharge. One of them was to discharge a duty. That's a military term. The other one is discharge an obligation of a bankruptcy. That's the interest of the United States on the account of the United States, and for the person making the same, so that no person is held liable in any court. That very much sounds like a peace treaty or an amnesty or an armistice. They're all pretty much the same, basically the same letter of credit. You're giving each other equal credit for being peaceful beings, saying, okay, yeah, we agree, we really don't owe each other anything.
Because we are using FRNs and we are not securitizing the FRN. They have us calling it a Federal Reserve note. Does it say that on the top? And it is actually a float.
Yeah, it's a floating rate note, but it's also a security of the
note.
United States.
We all know
it is a security
they like
instrument.
to play us with the terminology, with their wording, which is why it's so important to understand their terminology, their wording, so that you'll understand exactly what you're signing and what you're doing. So under the Emergency Banking Act, there are 5 titles that goes up under. If I was you guys, I would read it. I'm not going to read it to you. It would be a very good thing for you to read the Emergency Banking
Absolutely agree.
Act, because you need to know what game you're playing. You can't go
that and HJR 192
to Uno with trump cards.
And
you can't go to
public law
chess
73-10.
with checkers.
73,
So when you find out what game they're playing,
73-10.
you'll be able to join the game. This system was not created for us to beat it. You can't beat this system. But
Very well said, Goldsmith.
There's nothing stopping us from joining it outside of a lack of knowledge.
My people are destroyed.
Which I hope to give you guys today, and I hope you further it some after this call.
Absolutely. That's what I was just talking about.
So the Emergency Banking Act is where the authority was given to the comptroller. And if you guys notice, you got a comptroller of currency in every one of your states. We also have one up in Washington. It gave the Emergency Banking Act, gave the presidential authority through the banking crisis.
That's the one working with the Secretary of State, enumeration at birth.
There are 4 key players in
Department of Commerce
this game, as I call it. You have
regulates
us that's
regulates the Bureau of Vital
at the
Statistics.
head. You have the bank, which is the middleman. Because the only way to get to the treasury is through the bank.
And it all passes through the Municipal Chamber
Okay.
of Commerce.
So you got us,
Chamber of Commerce,
you got the bank,
the newly
the
created vessel.
you got the post office.
Levied upon the seas
For
of
everybody
commerce.
that knows and don't know, the post office runs everything.
Oop, what?
The post office is the head of everything.
What?
Because the post office is owned and
What?
ran by the Queen.
Owned
I
and
don't even
ran
know
by
if
the
any of you
Queen.
guys have
What?
noticed they started doing mail on Sundays the last 3 weeks.
Oop.
Okay. Because the post office is owned by the Queen, that is why their money orders are non-negotiable. Because they are the direct connect to the Treasury.
They're tied to the General
So the
Ledger.
Emergency Banking Act is very important for you guys to understand.
They're tied to that General Ledger, as I expressed in that 43 series of videos, the Master Trust Account, reconciling the Master Trust Account. And on that, you have a narrowcast Master Trust Report. So on the online Postal One site, you can create an account that would be connected with the General Ledger to make sure that all debts or credits for that United States citizen that you as holder in due course put on special deposit as a letter of credit or with a letter of credit to establish that amnesty that you have equal consideration, equal benefit. Seems pretty simple to me and expressed in trust form. Of course, because it's a global postal trust services and you're the benefactor to that beneficiary that they created.
There's 5 little titles on there. I touched on them briefly. As I stated, the Board of Governors, they are the ones who run the Federal Reserve. It is 7 of them. The Federal Reserve System is not the government. They are a private company, no different than Walmart. That's it. They are the only ones that are lawful to be able to use Federal Reserve notes. Do anybody know that the national debt average, if I'm not mistaken, is $231 trillion right now?
Damn it.
It's $231 trillion, but all of that money belongs to we the people.
It's all to the credit of
Every last dime of it.
the gross domestic product. And I won't agree here because some of it has to
The
go to
reason why
the
none of us have collected.
some of it does have to go to the corporations for their profit. But remember, folks, in this credit system, there is still the interest and inflations and things like that that we have to consider. So there's still room for that profit. That's exactly why they have inflation and interest. They're just digging their hand in the cookie till a little bit too much.
Any of the national debt is because we are not using Wells Fargo, Chase, Navy, Federal, whoever you bank with. You are not using them properly. The bank is not to deposit your money.
Everybody's been trained to use them as deposit agents. Okay, again, they're supposed to be assigned as securities brokers because everything you deposit, no matter whether it be a check, cash, or otherwise, is a security instrument. That's why they're asking for your signature, and this is why you're supposed to qualify it. That treasury statement and everything, in the interest of the United States, on the account of the United States. The whole 9 yards. Let them know you know what you're talking about because you're not here to war with them. You don't owe them anything and they don't owe you anything. Just correct the record.
The bank is to wire your securities to the treasury to come back to you. Times 2. Okay. I'll reiterate again to why we are the enemy of the state. Only because the Board of Governors are allowed to use Federal Reserve notes. Federal Reserve notes are only supposed to be used during an emergency, which is why we're always in an emergency. And they try to keep it that way.
And also understand, I was just thinking too, when it comes to these documents and correcting things, you got to remember it's a matter of correcting yourself as well. In that you have to make an admittance. Oops, we just lost Russ. In that you have to make an admittance that you've been doing things wrong and entering data elements in error, and that's what you're actually correcting. Now that you know what you've been doing in error, you need to correct that, and in that, it will have a different effect. And that different effect is just the rerouting so it has its currency like it's meant to. It's not going to go out there and then be sold over and over and over again and never come back to you like it's meant to. That's how credit works. Credit is what circulates.
So when I get to talking about the importance of terminology, we have to start using the proper terms. The green
Yep.
money in your pocket is an IOU that has no value.
Yep.
You're supposed to securitize it. You're supposed to take it to your bank and tell them to wire it to your TD accounts, which we will go over how to get your Treasury Direct account.
Which I briefly went over the other night.
Treasury Direct account
Last night, I think it was, in the primer.
In conjunction with your bank to wire.
This is the letter of instruction.
To the TDA,
This
which
is
the Treasury.
Yeah, this is a letter of instruction. You're going to learn how to use all these kinds of things.
Once it goes through the Treasury.
Letter of instruction to the Treasury Direct account and have them do all the set off, discharge, and clearing of accounts, whatever needs to be done so that it balances the general ledger.
The Treasury then securitizes it. It has now protected your funds. For those that know about the Q-SIP number, that is where the Q-SIP number is developed at, through the Treasury. So if you do a transaction,
So understand that the Q-SIP number is developed through the Treasury. And at the state level, you get that birth certificate and the certificate of live, statement of live birth from the hospital or the local county. Those aren't the actual securities yet. They can be securitized, but again, they've got to have their value, letter of instruction with their value to be securitized. And then issued forth. And this is all done through knowing how to put those values in there to give it the consideration it's supposed to have. Again, if we keep coming in as opposed enemies of the state, that's going to be detrimental not just to us but to the United States, and it's the state that's profiting. Now, that might seem all good and well, but again, that's destroying the class of people that the very United States is founded on to protect. So the true advantageous point would be to understand that your creditors, and always give that equal consideration to the United States for that internationally protected person that they gifted you. Understand the importance of that value and use it appropriately. It is a usufruct with equal consideration, equal benefit. They're using the name, use the person of that name as its international protection. Full faith and credit is given to protection orders. If it's already internationally protected, then there's already a protection order and it's under full faith and credit. Why? Because it's given by the United States. All obligations and other securities are obligations of the United States, public or private.
Proper way. Let's just say it's your remittance coupon for your lights. You are to take it to the bank after you have opened up your treasury account, and you are to say, hey, I need you to wire this to this account number. When you open up your treasury account, it gives you wire instructions to take to your bank to wire your securities. When I tell you that they gave us everything that we needed.
And so if you're understanding, folks, like I said, the credit's already there. It's just a circulation system. Whereas the money, the paper money we're using isn't a circulation. It's eventually going to be destroyed. This is a more perfect circulatory system in electronic form that can go on and on and on and on simply by saving data elements here or there in a collective unit so that it can always be retrieved. It's never going to be destroyed, because if one file gets destroyed, they can still find it in another file. That's what the search engine is particularized for. All you got to do is put something simple into your search engine and it will find it if it's out there. This blockchain system that they've developed allows that all the data elements that go out there into this internet, this Ethernet, are being collected and stored in many different venues, private and public. The library just gets massive.
Which is why the title that I had listed for this particular class said no more affidavits, because we don't need an affidavit.
Yeah,
when they created every form that we need, they created the process that.
Yeah, you just letter of instruction for the process.
So when we get to talk,
it's already there.
Talking about securities, a security is a financial security as a document of a certain monetary value. It refers to stocks and bonds, which are negotiable, and they're also considered a common type of financial security. So you got equity securities. Those are like CDs and things of that magnitude. Then you have debt securities. The debt securities are your promissory notes, your monthly bills, your IOUs, which is the FRNs. Those are all considered debt securities.
Debt notes.
So when you start referring to your
a note is a
promissory
promise.
notes and things, start referring to them as securities. Stop calling the bank a bank and call it for what it is. It is a securities
exchange.
Transfer agent.
Oh, yeah,
so
securities
all this
transfer,
time,
yeah.
we all have
That's at 12 USC
Saying the
411.
government is stealing our money. It's the government. It's not. It's the bank. It's JP
Okay,
Morgan Chase.
here I'll have to disagree because the banks are subject to the governance of the very federal government, all entities of the government of the United States, which is a corporation, including the United States Postal Service, which is the registered agent of the Global Postal Trust Services, under the trademark holder, the Postal Regulatory Commission, which is a military unit, and it is United States. Housing units.
It's Wells Fargo. It's Navy Federal. It's whoever you're banking with that is technically stealing from us. And they're paying off the government not to enforce the federal laws that they have put in place. So let's get to the good part. I told y'all I wasn't going to give y'all a whole lot of history. I'm going to absolutely tell y'all what you need to read, where you need to go to find it. I'm not going to read it to you.
And I forgot to mention the thing about Regulation Z when it comes to these banks being truthful about this stuff, Truth in Lending Act. All you got to do is, again, like we're explaining, there's a process that's already known, and the agents that are supposed to do certain things. When we can simplify that process, so many more people can take advantage of that as the benefit it's meant to be. This is the thing that will strengthen the nation because it will simplify the education behind giving a man a fish and you feed him for a day.
I'm going to give you straight what it is that you need to know. So us as consumers, how are we supposed to discharge debt? The system was designed to use our social security numbers to track the debt and discharge all debts using the banks as security transfer agents.
Credit card, again, like I said, means any card, plate, coupon book, or any other device used to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. It's all supposed to be done on credit. Discharge for discharge.
Once again, we have all been using the banks inappropriately. Banks are used to transfer agents to wire our securities to the treasuries. So the securities can be used to discharge the public debt and all consumer debt.
The public debt, telling us that we've been placing a public liability. Like I said, in the definition of accident, means continuous and repeated exposure to the same conditions that caused a public liability where the insured never expected nor intended. It was an accident. I didn't mean to. Now that I know better, I've got to do what's right by the law, and I've got to qualify that signature and give it the proper directive for full acquittance and discharge through a letter of instruction. And I've got to do it the right process, the right manner, with the right people. That's all it is.
They have conditioned us to be scared of the IRS. They have been conditioned us to be scared of all these governmental entities that actually thanks us when we turn our debts we turn in our securities to them. So for example, when you take a promissory note and you deposit it to the bank, which you can. Once you open your TDA account, your bank will transfer that security to the Treasury. The Treasury will then develop a CUSIP number that they can trade on the international auction that is on the Treasury Direct account. The Treasury thanks you for helping pay off the public debt by giving you back 2 times that amount. So if you have a promissory note that is $60,000, when it goes through the Treasury and it comes back to your bank account, it'll be $160,000. For those of us that have been doing this for a minute, with the opening up the trust accounts, because we're trying to hide our funds. I'm not gonna say hide, well, securitize them, make them secure so that they can't take them. You don't have to worry about that
Protect them.
if you use the bank properly. As long as it becomes securitized, you're fine. So not only do you get 2 times the amount back, now you also have that CUSIP number that you yourself can trade on your own TDA account that gains interest. If it's a regular like bill, those gain.
Yeah, Tribe, and my apologies again, everybody. It's the best I can do at the moment. When I played her video earlier, it was just fine. And now I'm having signal issues here. I don't know if it's the change in weather or what, but it is on my end. My apologies. I'll drop the link, or excuse me, actually the link is in the details section, Tribe, if you want to go ahead and go watch it. It's a good one to watch over and over again until you get it, because it really is a simple process of just giving a directive that's already laid out, and they will do it.
Interest every 4 weeks, which is why you get a dividend check every 4 weeks. Because we all know, if you don't know, your lights, your gas, your water, that statement that you get with that check connected to it is a dividend check.
Right, from a coupon book.
Yep.
You get an installment every month. It comes from a coupon book. It's going to give you a discount. In other words, they're not going to count your value. It's a discount. Here, pay this. Funny how that works.
Give it back to me double.
Check from the interest based off of the account. The top portion of that statement is actually the bond.
Yep.
Securitize that motherfucker.
Remember, folks, I've talked about this before. There are supposed to be 3 things attached. One would look like an invoice, you know, the products, services, and prices and all that, of the exchange. You would have the agreement, and then you would have a certification, a handwritten statement of intent, a directive, a letter of instruction, a letter of credit. And those three things put together, that's a securitization. When you do them forms correctly, put that stamp on there, directing it to the Treasury, put your dollar stamp on there, sign it at the bottom right in the right, proper capacity, flip it over, put your beneficiary signature on there with benefactor.
Wizard, wouldn't you want to print that up on bonding paper as well?
All paper has a bonded weight. It's already bond paper. That's a small issue.
Okay.
You could write
So
it on
when you
toilet
have people
paper.
doing accepted
Right.
for
Right. They'll monetize
value,
it one way or
it's a
another. I
check.
get you.
What are you doing accepted for value for? You're supposed to deposit it. I know Some people have tried to deposit their remittance coupons and they couldn't. You did not have the proper account open for them to wire your security, which is the TDA account. Okay. So there are 3 lawful ways that we can discharge our debts without having to write an affidavit or any of that. The first way, if you already have a promissory note, so this goes for a mortgage, it goes for a car contract, it goes for a rental lease, it goes for child support, because that's also a contract. That contract is a security because it's an instrument. Your promissory note is an instrument to be deposited. We were not supposed to autograph it. We were supposed to endorse it like
Correct.
a check.
Correct. Qualifying that capacity.
So of course, if you got a car contract, you only have a copy of it. So now how do we turn that copy into a commercial sheet of paper so that it can be endorsed and turned in? You do that with bonding paper. So the first step on how to endorse your promissory note is that you're going to need to find the trustee and the indenture trustee. The trustee and the indenture trustee is going to always be a bank.
And this you'll find on anybody that's registered for those securities. They're going to have a securities exchange agreement with an EX 4.1 document. This is known as a trust indenture filing, and it should have that information on that document. All contact information and everything.
Always. The Indenture Trustee Act of 1939. If I was you guys, I would look it up. That Trustee Act tells you as the beneficiary the lawful duties that you can tell the trustee to do on your behalf as the beneficiary.
Right. She's got on here the
The lawful definition of beneficiary is the enjoyment of all wills, contracts, and trust.
and she's got 10K form and 8K form on here
The only
too.
thing we're supposed to do is direct. That's
They will have that trust
so. The
and
first
trust
thing you want to do is
indenture
find the
trustee
trustee and the indenture
on there.
trustee. You will be able to find them on the securityexchange.gov website. You will look for the 10K form or the 8K form. And I'm gonna tell you now, they're not always easy to find. There's some people on this live that I had to make them look for one. One took, I think it took her
And that's why I
almost
say
2 days. Another one took 24 hours. One was even about to cry.
that's why I say get used to looking up that the SEC filing for whatever company you're looking for. Look up the EX 4.1.
Because she could not find it. The securityexchange.gov, they have to list their trustee because every company is up under the Security Exchange Act of 1934. You might want to go read it. It'll tell you everything that they're supposed to do, including
See, John's on it.
the discharge.
It's called the Postal Rule for the Global Postal Trust Services. So it deals with contracts in trusts for all things posted to all accounts globally.
And the cancellation of every last one of our debts. Anybody who knows me know I'm a firm believer. You find their words and you use their words against them.
Amen. Can I get an amen?
So your first
What'd you say, Nubs?
step,
I said
Is you're
that's
gonna
the
find
only
the
way to
trustee.
travel,
Yeah.
because then you're not accountable for anything that you've put on the record. You're merely reminding them of their record entry.
Absolutely, and I know I partook in it, so I have to be just as ashamed. I was incompetent. I was a bitch ass slave. I was a fucking fool. But it's time to put an end to it.
Yep. And this seems like a rather
Under the
beneficial
security
way
exchange.
to do it, to say the
Absolutely,
least.
absolutely.
Because
When you find
You're just giving them the facts that are already there. Like I said, it's been a
Right.
long time finding this stuff through all these codes, but it's simple once you do. It's been a long road, but once this is accomplished, like I said, people are going to be able to start taking advantage of this, and things are going to quell down, because it's not just us, but those other public servants are going to understand it too. What do you think is going to happen to the government then? Do you think it's going to downsize automatically? I would think that would be an automatic, both objective and actual effect.
Yep, absolutely. That would entice change.
Absolutely. I agree again. See, this is fun stuff.
The reason they call it boring is because it needs to be bored into your
the
head.
10K form or the 8K form, you might want to scroll through the form. I personally would read it all, because it even tells you in there that they have to cancel out the debts. But because we all know that a corporation cannot speak, which if some of you have been on here and you have sent affidavits and it was addressed to T-Mobile and they did not respond, T-Mobile can't speak. But under the Security Exchange, every company, every trustee has a representative at that bank that is over that account. If you scroll to the bottom of that form, you will find that person's name. You are to address that envelope directly to that person.
They really don't want this information getting out, do they?
No, not at all. And that's one of the things too, you know. Once we find out how this operates, you know, that commercial system and that education system kind of become our bitch, because now we can use our own homeschooling and education to teach the younger generations how the financial instruments work, as well as that education system. Like I said, and I'll do a review again of the selective service and what it is video I did a couple years ago, because that's the basic foundation of entering our younger generation into the military system, is in fact the public education system. It is a General Education Provisions Act, and that is a military forum, just like the hospital. It's a spell of illness being continued on in military script. Remember that video we started out with yesterday? He was talking about the grammar, the contract, the minerals, and the elements. And So now we have this public education system in this modern time that is doing nothing but indoctrinating everybody in the military propaganda that they have to live in a war. Pathetic.
And that's why you're a ward of the state.
Correct. And
Because you're
that's
at
why you
war.
have, and that's why you have awards and rewards. Forward. Forward march.
That if it's not addressed to an actual person, they don't have to respond to you.
So you're gonna, the address is gonna have the name of the bank, attention, the CFO. You're gonna find the
Trustee.
CFO. Right. Well, he's going to be either the CFO or trustee, chief financial officer. Generally, they'll list trustee in there somewhere, but
Right.
it's going to be the CFO most likely.
Well, later on I've been studying her videos for quite a while. She says later on it does need to go to specifically the trustee, because other people have sent it off to the CFO and they've been able to ignore it because it's addressed to the wrong individual. The trustee is the one responsible.
Okay. Well, generally they'll name the trustee as the CFO. So yeah, be extra careful on that then.
Yep, it's common practice. They hold a dual role.
Stuff and you want it to be for
Yeah, a lot of these
them
people
because
do.
they didn't respond. Well, if you didn't send it to a physical person, they lawfully do not have to respond. If you send it to a P.O. box, they do not lawfully have to respond.
Right.
When you get this information.
That's why there's a distinction when you have mail sent to yourself, to Keith Little in all uppercase, if it's business mail or anything like that, care of Keith Little, and then your address and everything. And of course it's, United States of America. So again, you have a, 5-line address that is not in the national address format. And yet, though it's got some kind of legal entity looking things up there, it's actually making a distinction that you know what the fuck you're doing, and that if that address issue and trust comes up, you're going to back it up. And that's why I suggest only doing that if you know what you're doing. You got to be able to.
She's actually got a video. It's another one of her videos, but she describes a document that you can give to the post office, and it'll take care of that for you. It sends your mail in a private, or it sends your, what is it, parcels?
Right,
I'm getting the wording wrong. But it sends them to a private location as opposed to being in the federal jurisdiction. It's an interesting piece of paper that she describes later.
It's a rural route address, route address.
Not with the way that she was doing it. But yes, the rural route is also that same, because you go pick up your mail, it's not actually delivered, or your parcels.
It's actually a dispatch of parcels as a rural routing.
Yep, there's more than one option is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and it's a matter of knowing how to make those distinctions. Again, that education of feeding a man for a day if you give him a fish. And there are different levels.
And they have to double our fish.
Off of
2 fish and 5 loaves,
you
right?
won't even have their address on there. I always do a double search check through LinkedIn. And I also have another website that I use where I can pull up every company CEO's information as well. And make sure you address it to the physical person that is signed through the security exchange. The importance of that is only the person who is named as the trustee and the trustee of Ditcher is liable for the fraud that is happening, that is liable for the cancellation of the debts. So when you guys call and you talk to the CEO or you talking to customer service, when I
And remember that full acquittance and discharge. That's a full acquittance across the board, full discharge across the board. This is what we were talking about. It's going to discharge the obligations and liabilities of all parties, along with the debt and everything. It's going to clear the whole table to everybody's got an equal station in life. Now let's start all over.
tell you they do not know what you're talking about, they don't. They're not lying to you. More importantly, if you were to take them to court, the only person that you can lawfully take to court is the trustee or the trustee indenture. Now, the indenture trustee will always be a trust bank, like Wilmington Trust, I'm sorry, guys, I'm sitting outside. Somebody was pulling their garbage can. Like Wilmington Trust, you'll see Wilmington Trust a lot. You'll see Bank of Mellon, New York a lot. Wells Fargo got their hands in everybody's everything. They are considered the trustee because a trust can only deal with the trust. So the indentured trustee will be a trust bank because they are dealing with our trust. But the servicer will be a regular bank like Wells Fargo, Chase, Navy Federal, things like that. Okay. All right. The second part, to endorse your promissory note, you're going to reprint it on bonded paper. You can get the Southampton linen paper that's at least 30 weight or higher. Don't go past 32 because then you're getting like cardstock. You don't want it that thick. You'll be able to find this paper at Walmart, Amazon, or any other office supply store. You are going to reprint your contract on that bonded paper. Once you reprint it on the bonded paper, you are going to turn it over and endorse it like a check. So if the trustee bank is Bank of America, you're going to put paid to the order of Bank of America.
So now they've got an order to do something. They have to do it. That's the
You're
obligation.
going to go down like to the middle.
All they have to do is do according to the
Not too far down
instructions.
in the middle of the back of the paper and endorse it just the same way you would do a regular check. Due to the fact that it's on commercial paper and it is a promissory note, and that is the only lawful payment that we as consumers have, that's your payment.
And notice there's no without recourse on there.
When you sign your signature, you will sign it as the beneficiary signature.
I would put without recourse.
Sure. Which is first name / middle name.
If you put without recourse, wouldn't that eliminate your ability to wouldn't that limit your ability to cash it in per se? And that's the wrong words to say.
No, that's your enforcement to cash it in. You're saying that they are without recourse.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I got you. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
They offered an instrument. You're honoring the instrument. Right.
Gotcha. So the instruction of without recourse falls on them, not eliminating your recourse on it.
Right.
Gotcha.
And notice she says first slash middle, and it's not a slash, it's a hyphen. First hyphen middle, and then backslash last. And
Yeah.
I don't use the backslash. I use the full colon stop, and they both necessarily mean the same thing, denoting a distinction between the two. And you could use either or, you could use them both together.
Colon last name. That is how you sign a beneficiary signature.
Maybe that is a full colon.
Now, the only thing that we are responsible for is the taxes. The taxes go to the Queen. The Queen can only take lawful funds. So what are lawful funds? The post
Stamps.
Yep.
stamps. The ones
Taxes are duly paid by stamp. So once you pay the taxes duly, everybody's released of their duty in the military forum, the Admiralty. Why? Because it completes the contract in maritime. Once you complete the contract to satisfaction and the beneficiary has received the benefit, it proves the trust operated as it was intended. Equity.
Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. That's what that whole script, dude. I heard this lady the other day, and I swear to God, I had an epiphany of what the Bible is really about and how it applies in our life. They always talk about how it applies in our life today, but this is a realm that I've never even understood that it applied. And it's to my understanding, the main reason that we have these holy scriptures.
Well, yeah, it's a set of instructions to work with the tax man.
Yes.
Let him know
Caesar gets
you're a
what
friend.
Caesar wants, and we give to God what is God. Well, doesn't it say, and wasn't the reason he was crucified is ye are all gods?
Yep.
And that means that if you're giving it to God, it's giving it back to the rightful owner.
Who is going to do what? Circulate it and put it right back out. Everything he puts out goes right back to him. Why would he put something out to have it just come back to him? Wouldn't he just turn around, put it back out? That's history repeating itself. We're just not getting much better at it.
And the thing is this process, to my understanding, from what I'm gathering after listening to this at least twice, and this being the third time, if not the fourth, my understanding of it is, let's say you were to use a credit card to pay for things, and you brought that payment from that booklet in, you get all that stuff doubled. So it literally keeps on giving you the 5 loaves from the 2 fish.
Right. And that's that's a parable that's expressing to us like going out with our 5 talents, coming back with 10, going out with 3, coming back with 6. But if we bury the one we have, it's never going to grow.
Yep. And that's exactly what we're doing. For the most part, we're burying our talent. Even if we have talents like yourself, you can't say that you have done all these processes, meaning that you are at the same level. And so even people that, what I'm saying is, even people that we look up to as an authority, sometimes they don't know the whole story, and we need to continue to research. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus by any means. I hope that you understand what I'm saying.
Well, I see no affront about it. That's my main point in all of this: is don't believe your neighbor, don't believe your government, don't believe your mother, for crying out loud, and don't believe me, because sometimes I can't believe myself. I have to keep doing the research because it's still inconclusive.
Right. So I guess you've already established that. I just don't want to. I don't want you thinking that I'm looking to offend by using such bold words, but that's what all this is bold words.
Yeah, well, speaking boldly as we ought to, brother.
Right, right. That's why I like you, Wizard. You tell it how it
Cent.
is from my
2 cent,
understanding and experience.
5 cent, 10 cent, $5, $10 stamps from the post office. I will make sure that everyone in here gets
Now, the Tax Stamp Act
a
has
copy.
various
You will
different
actually
rates,
Income Road. Get a copy.
and I think that's what she's referring to. But again, remember, you can obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit, again, with a card that was issued when you were 18 and you applied for it.
There's I think she'll get to it here in just a moment. But there effectively there's different charges, different amounts of tax based off of the number associated with the account. And I mean like the accounting number. So if it's $100 to $500, it's 1 10-cent stamp, and so on and
Right.
so forth. That's not accurate for numbers, but that's how it works.
Right.
Like your freedom, one of the things that you need to put on those documents or those securities is a 50-cent stamp, because that's the monetary level it takes to acquire your freedom. Ironically,
Right.
halfway there.
And Fuzzy 75 asks if we cancel the stamp. No, that's that's something you put on there, and it signifies that you were the first one to put actual consideration to it.
Actually, she does talk about this. I don't know whether it's this video or another one. I'm just remembering what she's saying is that it's either in blue ink. You can use blue ink to cancel that stamp, or you can have it brought in and canceled at the post office. That is the preferred way.
Right. And
so that stamp does get canceled. It's just not by you. Let the government serve.
And that's where I'm working on the next step is in relations to that postal account. I believe that the postmaster is such a securities agent and in that capacity. So I've got to do some more research on that to make sure, because that would be another bank that you could work with.
You could probably pull securities off of everything then. Any piece of mail.
Exactly.
And flip it over.
Again, because that's where everything originated, was with those municipal bonds that are an agreement between the post office with that bonding number attached to that street name, which is a street name security, securitized by the real estate investment trust, so held in agreement through interlocal agreements for the exclusive federal jurisdiction of the post office to the local municipality and its mayoral form of government.
Those security bonds, I've been looking into those after listening to her. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah. That's why I say, I looked up some of those security agreements for the private relief laws and stuff. Some of these people have those $100 billion bonds and shit, based on that birth certificate, and they're out there in the public, right up there on the SEC site. So you gotta wonder, folks, how the fathomable amount that you could assess as a value to things in a credit system.
Right. And once she'll get to it later on, so I'll let her explain it better. But once you get to a certain point, you're guaranteed right out of the gate, like 260,000 or something like that. Buy a house, flip that shit, resell it, upsell it, no taxes associated. Like, use the tax code the way it's supposed to be. And we don't pay fucking tax because we're not supposed to if you're set up correctly.
Well, you could just issue your own security instrument as a transfer. So
that's another part.
You don't act, neither one of you act as the security agents. You just act as the ones contracting, and then you hand it off to the security agent to make it happen. so that the
Yep.
title is automatically transferred to the other person, and the only thing that's exchanged is credits.
Yep.
Give a
And
man a
it's real
fish.
easy to do in a situation like me where I would be both the holder or not the holder, but I would be the guy doing the business and also doing the busyness.
Yeah, and it's that give a man a fish. Now you just fed him. Now you teach him how you did it, and then when he goes to sell it, he'll do the same thing. He'll teach the next guy how he did it. Instead
Yep.
of selling it, he'll transfer it, knowing that it's just a transfer of credits.
The land shall not be sold forever.
Correct.
I see. I'm getting where
the
this
UPU
all
treaty.
like
Now they
gets
have some
together.
current UPU treaties out, but everything that they're operating under is either from the 1800s or the early 1900s. They put the new ones out to kind of throw us off. When you
Well, it's like that. It goes back to that grammar thing. It's still basically the same laws. They just re-grammared it. That's all they're doing is they're changing the language that's being used. It still says has the same like wording. So effectively, it really hasn't changed. They're just using more and more modern terms. This is the political correctness and the transgender and pronouns and all that we see. The language itself is changing. And like I said, it's a very beautiful thing. And when you
It's-
recognize it, you can start creating your own, coin your words. You can start coining your words, and that's what's happening.
It's literally the modern day version of the Tower of Babel. They are confusing the languages.
Absolutely. So again, when you understand what it really is, you can, of course, instead of coining your words, just use the words that are already true and faithful and have been coined by the word of truth. No matter what language it is, it's always
Yep.
there.
Yep. Just use the correct language.
Yep.
put your stamps on your contract,
I can
you're going
just
to
see
put
the
one in
smile
the
on your
lower
face,
right
Wizard.
hand corner on the front. You're going to put one lower in the right hand
Yep.
corner of the back.
It's talking about stamps. I know you've got a big old smile.
Any contracts over 100,000 needs to have $15 worth of stamps
Do you hear that?
on the contract. So you can, I will make sure that everyone in here gets a copy. It will actually be in Gumroad.
Wizard, wouldn't
Get
there
a copy
be,
of the UPU.
I mean, really, if you think about it, if there has to be a remedy for all this stuff, wouldn't there be a way to get those stamps at no charge or to discharge them after the fact? If you really think about it,
Well,
use
that's
your
what I'm
credit
saying.
card, buy it, and then turn it into a security and get twice back on it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and I already did a video on this where I went down to the post office and tried to convince him that that's how it's supposed to work. And so I'm still working with him and the Board of Governors of the Postal Service on the whole damn issue. Form 6837, wherein it states its conditions where you can buy a postal money order for from the registered agent under the Trademark Regulatory Commission, and on it states its value and its exchange. For $1.10, you can get 0.00 and above up to 500.00. Okay? What's the dollar amount? You're supposed to state your terms on there that this is an instrumentality, a device being used to obtain money, property, such as stamps, United States stamps, and other representatives of values that
Yep.
are obligations or other securities of the United States already on credit. And now and their own site even says that Visa cards and MasterCards, even if it says debit card, they're to be treated as credit cards.
Yep, because it all
So-
runs on good faith and credit.
So why are they issuing receipts that say U.S. debit and taking it out of my account? It's supposed to be done on credit. That's their specific writing, and I showed it to them. Pathetic, plain writing. And William Carstairs, I'm late to your broadcast. Can you tell me this lady's channel name so I can look her up? It's in the details in the details section below, brother.
You're gonna get addicted.
Paths to Freedom. It's in the details section below, folks.
Yeah, there's many ways to skin a cat. You just got to learn how to do it.
Treaty. Now they have some current UPU treaties out,
See?
but everything that they're operating under is either from the 1800s or the early 1900s.
I'm loving this woman.
I know you are.
The new ones out to kind of
He knows her shit too.
When you put your stamps on your contract, you're going to put one in the lower right-hand corner on the front. You're going to put one lower in the right-hand corner of the back.
Because she says lower right-hand corner.
Any contracts over 100,000 needs to have $15 worth of stamps on the contract.
Over $100.
You can split it up and put a portion on the front and a portion on the back.
See, I tell you what, if there's any place that I could see being able to create your own stamps, this is the place.
Absolutely. Again,
This
like
is
I
the
said,
main, like, this is
Like-
not snafu going to the fucking post office and trying to mail out something. That's not what, this is what that's all about, in my understanding, in opinion.
absolutely. Credit card is any card, plate,
Yep.
coupon book, or other device used to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. And at that
Yep.
homemade postage stamp, all you have to do is note that it's prepaid with its prepaid account number, like I've expressed before, the number on the back and its conversion. Then why wouldn't you just do that? And let them know that in that letter of instruction.
Right.
This is the device being used to obtain everything on credit, whether it be money, property, labor, or services.
And it says that right there in the law. So cite the law right there in your instructions.
Yep. Customer agrees to make third-party
Fucking
consumer.
Brilliant.
Customer agrees to make third-party payment for consumer, so long as it is understood that the credit is given back to the customer's account.
Yep.
It's already prepaid. So here you go, take it, but it comes back.
And they would have to do that. You would have to be able to make your own stamps, because when these things were written, post offices were not in every town.
Well, and not only that, but it's a matter of a foreign country judgment.
Right. That's
it's
true.
It's a matter of recognizing everybody else is actually a foreign entity, and they each have their own plenary powers to be able to assert. The problem is many are not competent of them because they've removed all this stuff from the schools. They don't want you to have those powers.
This is where the flag laws would come in. Really, to me, in my understanding, this is exactly where those flag laws would come in.
Well, yeah, that's denoting your intent. That's that coat of arms with the family crest. It all goes back to heraldry. Again, if you're not going to herald like the angels and let the world know that a legacy heir has arrived, inheriting the riches of the earth, under the Word of God, then all you've done is entered in a false entity into a legal system that's going to be used against you in any kind of law, uh, civil, administrative, or criminal. And the
Wizard,
threat
I'm gonna
or
have to.
use, the use or threatened use of a law or legal system is the abuse or threatened abuse. You're not
Yep.
supposed to be subjecting yourself to that. You're better than that.
When I put my stuff in the newspaper, I'm gonna have
Supposed
to
to be
get
anyway.
together with you because
For your-
you have a
for your
way about your
newspaper?
words that is. Go ahead.
For your newspaper?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, cool.
because like I was saying, you have a way about words that is unique, and it's unique to you. And what I'm able to glean from your fields that are cleaned and still come up with food.
Well, I hope so.
And I think
That's
that's what a
my-
lot of people don't realize about this channel is that's what we're supposed to be doing. You're taking care of your crops, and we're able to glean from your field to get our own nutritions. Because if I collect 50 seeds, make half of it to bread, I still have 25 to plant and grow my own crop.
Yeah, and that's that Johnny Appleseed aspect.
Yep.
You know, I don't think Johnny Appleseed went around planting apple seeds just to be planting apple seeds. I think he had a further intent, knowing that along his travels, he might want to come along an apple tree and be able to take some sustenance from it. So the more he planted along his paths, the more apples he was able to have along those paths. Therefore, he's providing for his own sustenance. So when he returned, and you got to remember, supposedly Johnny Appleseed was a brewer of sorts, if you know what I mean.
Well, if you think about it,
He
that's
liked his
really
alcohol.
if you really think about it, that is the story of futures in the stock market. You're planting seeds to hope to come back and collect on the reward. That's all futures are. I mean, whether it's an actual story or a parable of today, you know, because all those parables are said in different ways in modern thinking, in modern understanding.
Yeah, and if you remember last night's video, we talked about that future debt. They're automatically expecting a future debt, and that's why there's this interest in inflation, because they expect that future debt. Why would they expect a future debt? Because that's what they live off of. They live on the deceit that you are a debtor. Okay, so they call it a future debt. You're already in debt. You've been in debt all your life, and you've been indoctrinated into believing that. It works perfectly for them.
Well, I mean, you think about what's going on down in Texas. Why is Texas the only state that's fighting it? It's because they're not under federal rule. You look at where their post boxes are. They're not on the property. Why?
Well, yeah, and that's what a lot of
because
people
they
don't
don't
understand.
contract.
Well, that's what a lot of people don't understand. Even if an officer is pulling you over on that road, that's a postal road.
Yep.
Inherently that excuse me. Hold on.
That postal road has a dual jurisdiction too, though. Keep that in mind. Because
that's
it's the
what
public highways and byways as well.
Well, that's what I was just going to speak on.
Okay.
The officer pulling you over better make damn sure he's got an interlocal agreement with the Postal Service to obtain that jurisdiction to enforce the laws on that postal road, because that's inherently exclusive jurisdiction under congressional authority. So if he doesn't have the proper chain of communication with Congress in order to be doing what he's doing against one of the American citizens of the highest principal American interest, granted a gift of an internationally protected person known as a United States citizen and represented through a resident, he better hope he doesn't pull me over anymore.
Can I see your postal pass?
Yeah. It's Psalms 121 verse 8.
Once I get my affairs correct, I think I might use that one if you don't mind. Can I see your postal pass, sir? And it'll be on their body cam, and it'll be showing his ignorance of the
I know
law.
some may have seen if he canceled out that you writing your name around across it with the date. I don't do that. Take it to the post office. Tell them to cancel the stamp out. They will.
Okay, so that stamp is a debt, right?
Yep. And the debt gets canceled.
You take a stamp and put it on a
Absolutely.
napkin and tell them to cancel it out.
Praise God.
Why else would they cancel it? You wouldn't
Because the
cancel
debt
it.
has been satisfied. You
Yeah, you
brought
wouldn't.
it in to be redeemed.
Yeah, you wouldn't cancel a credit. You'd want that credit to stand as long as possible, right?
Yep. Yep. I told
So
you,
you have
dude,
endorsed, you have
I'm
rewritten
understanding this shit now.
the contract on
Like, it's
bonded
all
paper.
making sense.
You have endorsed the
Everything has an opposing dynamic, folks, and that's like I've been saying for a long time. Everything's upside down and backwards. If you learn how to look at things in a different way, from a different perspective, especially if you consider yourself as a central point of your universe, and you take yourself outside of that, and you go out one direction. Now that's on a flat plane. That would be 360 degrees in 360 different directions. Now, if you tilt that plane 1 degree, now you got 360 degrees that you can go out in different directions, except for the two that are still on that plane that cross at that intersection. So now you got 348. Now what you do is you multiply that times 360.
Yep.
So you got 360 to the 360th power. And that's how many objective views you can take in a globular aspect of being outer spective. In other words, looking out from yourself and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, something like that. The more people you can put yourself into their shoes from outer perspectives, the better globular view that you're going to have, which is going to, I think, in my perspective, subjectively, of course, going to give you a better perspective of what's really going on. It's like I said with the puzzles, like I said with the puzzles that you buy from one company, you buy a set of 100-piece puzzles. You buy 5 of them. They're all different puzzles on the picture, but the die cut is the same. So you can mix all 5 of those puzzles up and try to put a picture together and end up with all different kinds of pieces from other puzzles and not figure it out. That's what we're looking at. All these different jurisdictions, all the different grammars, they all paint a different picture and different pieces of the puzzles. Go ahead.
It sounds like 2 commandments that I've heard. And those are loving the Lord your God with all thy heart, soul, strength, and mind, which directly relates to what we're talking about. And also, the second one is like it. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Have that experience with them in mind. Because if I were to do that with you, and you were to do that with your neighbor, and your neighbor would do that with so on and so forth, 7 degrees of separation back in the 80s, probably down to about 2 or 3 with the internet. You know, that would make an impact and a standing change on the land, because we are the land. The very minerals that we are come from the land and will return.
You're, like I mentioned last night, you're the 5th element: earth, water, air, fire.
We're the conglomeration.
The living soul. Yep.
Everything that is external is also internal. That's why, like, and I would probably bet that in a properly balanced diet, you would have equal ratios of essence, like gold to mercury to iron to, you know, calcium sorbate and all those things. All of what exists outside probably exists by measure to you. And that's what keeps us bound to the land, is because we are literally every element. And that's speculation. But it seems as if the macro is the micro and the micro is the macro in every other case and event in the world, to my knowledge.
Seems to be that way.
So, I mean, there's what, 10% of the dry weight of the human brain is ruthenium.
Oh, come on. Now you're getting way off topic here.
Sorry. It makes me think. It
I know.
makes me think, because the thing
Shut
about
up.
it is the micro's the
Shut up.
macro. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Forward march.
Yeah, we're already moving slow here.
The contract like a check on the back. You have a stamp in the right-hand corner front, right-hand corner back. You have went to your post office and told them to cancel the stamp out.
The back is the private, isn't it?
I will, like I
Yep.
stated, I will make sure that
Yep. So you cover your debts in public
everyone
and private.
has
That's why
the
front and
UPU
back. That makes sense.
guide that'll tell you exactly how much needs to go on whatever instrument that you are sending. Now, when you go to mail this, by law, because you are mailing a security, it has to be sent registered mail, not green cards, red and white.
You hear that? Not green cards,
That is the law.
but red and white.
That is why
Now it's a registered security.
every company
And it's backed.
wanted you to go.
You can
to paperless
invoke
billing.
the postmaster general at that point.
Well, yeah, it's already invoked. Again, folks, it's securitized through the Postal Service because it's the Postal Service that has the real estate investment trust that actually backs it. It's their investment. It's originally their security issue.
Yep.
Because they are committing mail fraud. Because every security, aka bill,
Absolutely.
has to be sent registered.
Do you hear that? Every bill, security, otherwise, has to be sent registered mail. They're telling you to keep the security and send them and detach the coupon. That's a false instruction.
It's also mail
When
fraud.
you send a document, registered mail, one, when you cancel out the stamp, you have
Yeah, they're telling you to destroy a
now just
security.
made yourself postmaster.
You understand that, folks? They're telling you to destroy a security instrument. It's not a security yet, but it's a security instrument. They're telling you to destroy it. That's giving
And if
legal
you follow-
advice. That's giving legal advice.
Yep. It's mail
On the
fraud
instrument.
on many different counts.
Yep.
Okay. When you send it registered mail,
You missed that part, Wizard, where she
now you
said
just
you make
invoked the
yourself
Postmaster
postmaster general in that case.
Yeah, by
Old
canceling,
registered
Snappy
mail
would,
is so important
would be
that it
interested.
yeah, by canceling the stamp yourself.
Yep.
You have the right to have an equal station in life. Right? Remember we read about the plenary powers 2 nights ago? Plenary and plenipotentiary. That's what we're talking about. You have an equal station in life. You have the full powers too. You have the same powers. Like I said, when it comes to the Calvo doctrine, that speaks on that same concept, that you have the full powers of any nation in your index finger. The same full powers all nations around the world is in your index finger. Make sure you know what you're doing. That's all.
Know thyself.
Yep.
Telling you, man, I'm
actually sits
getting it.
on the mail truck in a clear lockbox by itself. That security is also insured for whatever value the amounts of the security contained
Yep.
inside it. So that
Yeah, so if you're mailing something that you've got a value on it for $15 million, it's insured for $15 million, folks. They better damn well do what they're supposed to do with that security.
let's just say you sent your contract to Alley Financial and they didn't do what they were supposed to. You know, you can now invoke the Postmaster General. And they will have to pay you for whatever the value of you said that was in that package. That is why sending registered mail is so much better than green card. I never say anything green card.
This is why you use a copy, right? You have the original, and then you copy it onto bond paper.
If you don't send it by the USPS, it has to be sent by mail. That provides chain of custody. So that can be UPS.
Chain of custody of what? Remember, that's going to have a title on it, right? That's a document of title, so it's a chain of title. Remember the thing about expenses incidental to transfer of title to agency, expenses incidental to transfer of title to the United States, and expenses incidental to transfer of title to the Postal Service.
Yep.
Or FedEx.
Effectively, what it does
Can
is
also be used.
it creates an irrefutable chain of command, and it's all
Right.
on their end.
Right, it's a cure of process. That's what the cure is about, folks. You have when you file a suit in these courts, you're supposed to construct your documentation, making your claim, stating the incident, that of course the date, the people involved, and the harm, loss, and injury, damage, whatever. Show supporting evidence. Make sure you have your definitions clarified, and then in the construction of that, you're supposed to give them relief, remedy, and cure. Cure is what we're talking about here.
Sounds like instructions to me.
Exactly. It's instructions to follow the process as it's already written. You're the transfer agent. This is a transfer. It's securitized thus, and this is the principal, and this is the obligor on that principal, United States. Nothing you can do about it. It's already set forth. You're subject to the laws of the United States. Federal government means all entities of the government of the United States. Now, I've just given you a entity of the government of the United States known as United States citizen / resident. You see that document title? That's an entitlement of an internationally protected person. You're not so internationally protected. You carry the liabilities. Is that understood?
I prefer using the post office so that I can invoke the Postmaster General if need be. That is all you have to do for any car contract, mortgage contract, endorse.
Car contract, that's that purchase order we were talking about the other night. Remember, the purchase order is something issued by a buyer to a seller. So if you're going to go to a car lot and you're going to get a purchase order, that means they're going to buy something. What are you selling and how much are you going to charge? Is it equal consideration, equal benefit, quid pro quo? Make sure it is. They're the one that gave an offer in honor of a valid contract form, and therefore to keep it valid, it must have that equal consideration. So if that car costs $58,793.49, you give them equal consideration, letting them know that the letter of instruction is based on your willingness as a customer to pay the third-party expense of the consumer, so long as it's understood that credit is given to your account based on your special deposit of said instructions through their broker. Got to do it. And it's that simple. It really is. I hope to be able to show you guys this here real soon.
The cool thing about that, Wizard, is I'm
Stamp it.
going through that same experience. So what I do, I can reflect on my end, and what you do, you can reflect on your end, because we're out for different goals, but the goal nevertheless is the understanding of. So therefore we both end up being part of a specific knowledge or understanding.
Well, let's make sure it's clear here. I'm out for the goal of redemption.
Absolutely.
Redeeming the land and my brethren, all of the children of Israel, speaking boldly as I ought to, letting no tongue prosper, and rising up any judgment and condemning it. And this is the inheritance of the servants of the Lord, and the righteousnesses of the Lord.
I will agree 100%.
That's my only intent. Tired of this bullshit.
Yep.
Make sure you make copies of everything that you send, and everything will always go to the trustee, not the registered agent, not the CEO, not the P.O. box. It will go directly to the trustee. When you pull those trustee 10K, 8K forms, their physical address will be on there. Okay. So now let's just say you are sending a car contract. It's just not good enough for you to just be able to get it discharged off. Because whatever amount they say we owe them, they technically owe us, which is why the debt average is so high. So if you're sending your car contract to Alley Financial, I will also put an instruction sheet inside of the envelope. That instruction sheet will advise them to wire your securities through your TDA account. You open your TDA account under the treasurydirect.gov. It takes about 5 minutes. You will have to connect your bank account to. If by chance, when you go to open up your TDA account, if your credit report is locked, you might want to unlock it. If they're unable to verify you, because that is the Treasury, you will receive an email. Do not be alarmed. A few people have gotten it. It's just going to want to verify that you are who you are. If you run across that, do not fill out that form until you're at the bank, and you're going to have to find an institution that does medallion signature guarantee.
And this, I think, is where she's talking about that national document that you can present as evidence, not of identification, but of the representative. I'll have to look it up. I just pulled it up here not too long ago, but it goes to the identification. And remember, folks, I've also talked in the past about the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve and their internal letter about the Customer Identification Program Exemption Program, and it's specifically related to the Patriot Act. And what we're talking about there is the cybersecurity. So in cybersecurity, they ask you for like a name and a number and addresses and stuff and emails, but never a picture ID. So we have a distinction there of a identification program that can be had without a photo ID. So along that lines, there's also an identification program that can be had by giving a number in lieu of the name and address. And the number in lieu of the name and address is directly related to the representative of the person so named in the document, and he is the one allowed to give a number in lieu of the name and address, but yet supply an address in care of, so it reaches the beneficiary. Simple process.
Because those are treasury forms, you cannot use a regular notary. The best
Nope.
bet is to go to Fidelity. PNC does it, Navy Federal does it, Bank of America does it. Wells Fargo no longer does it. Chase no longer does it. They actually got kicked out of the program. Fidelity don't give you any issues.
And I'm going to say that, again, based on the concept that if it's a MasterCard or Visa card, debit card, it's to be treated as a credit card. Again, any card, plate, coupon book, or device used to obtain money, property, labor, or services should be used for on credit.
When you
Wouldn't
get that
that be
medallion
something
signature
through
stamp,
the bank though, Wizard?
Huh?
Wouldn't that, so hear me out. If you were to contact the correct person in the bank to have that switch, I bet you there was a way that you can switch that from credit or from debit to credit. Because the law is out there, you just need to inform the right person and they'll probably switch your card, not anybody else's.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You get, and there's different ways you could do it. You could get like a government card based on a promissory note that everywhere you used it, it was directly tied to the general ledger, so it wouldn't be used as a debit. It would be lodged as the credit it's supposed to be, therefore not causing an imbalance with the general ledger and cause a narrowcast master trust report to be issued. See, it's automatically being able to keep things in balance at a pretty much now time rate. So say I got made up a promissory note, and I've got a local grocery store I go to on a regular basis to get my groceries, and I figure out my budget for the year, and I make a promissory note for let's make it an even $5,000, and I issue that to you without recourse, pay to the order of such and such a store. And then I hand that to my transfer agent. That transfer agent is supposed to extend those credits to that store based on my instructions, so that in the future when I go there, I have a card that will automatically debit on my side. That's what's not being done on this double ledgering system. Their side is showing the debits and credits, but on my side, it's only showing the debits. So if I put the credits in there first, then when I take it out as a debit, now it's decreasing the balance that's already there, but that's because it's an advanced deposit. It's an advanced credit. Who advanced the credit? I did. No one else can. Even if you went to a bank and got a credit loan or a line of credit, they actually extended your own damn credit. It's the only place they can get it. It is the vital statistics jurisdiction exclusive to that number. Quit giving it out and learn how to use it.
I would look at what color they gave me, because it now just ensured your signature, depending on which one you get. If you get a green one, it may be, I believe it's 10 million. So it just ensured your signature for $10 million. The form does tell you, do not get a regular notary. It does tell you that it has to be a medallion signature.
And again, this is one of those situations, I believe, where you can take a birth certificate and give it a letter of instruction as an advance deposit based on full faith and credit of that internationally protected person that is already in the general ledger somewhere, and it's done by this number. Now, there's where you attach that number and say, okay, well, as I understand, it's quid pro quo. So if I give myself 10 million, I'm giving the United States 10 million. That's why when you send this stuff out, they give you a check for double the amount. As some might say. I've not done this yet.
When you go to the Treasury Direct .gov to open up your account, matter of fact, hold on. I'll pull it up for you guys. Hold on 1 second.
So with Federal Reserve notes, it seems that you would send that to the local bank with the letter of instruction to make a special deposit in the TDA account. And when they make that special deposit, what they're doing is they're converting it to a book entry security. Okay? That's the definitive paper form has now been converted. Now the paper gets to continue on in its circulation. So now you have credit circulation and monetary circulation in a form of money, a species of money that will get to continue going on until it dies. The credit goes on in perpetuity. It's irrevocable.
In her minors video, the age of majority, she explains a little bit, and basically the way I understand it, and it's a bastardly way to understand it, with that being said, is you take over the minor's account. So,
Right, you become that entity as a local parentis capacity
yes.
to
No,
be able to
you
say,
remove
okay,
the minor status.
well, yeah, you're gonna take capacity as like the babysitter or the, like I said, the local parentis, and that is gonna say, okay, now I've taught him and he's grown up and he's gone off on his own. I don't know who he is. Or in the bankruptcy sense, as we've been talking about, a merger, resurrection into a new name.
Yep. For I have been redeemed.
That's right. That's what I'm working on. Like I said, I'm going to do the fictitious name registration for myself and my companion. I've got the birth certificate and statement of live birth supposedly coming. I hope I've got it figured out to the biological one. I'm not sure yet. We're still discussing that, seems like. But
well, make sure you're I would say definitely check her other videos out. She's got some interesting things.
Oh yeah, I will.
So, I mean, yeah. You're a wise man.
I just wish we didn't have to deal with this buffering, folks. My apologies again.
Still worth it.
Maybe not. Yeah,
like I said,
stuck
man,
again.
I want to go build this woman a beautiful fence at somebody's expense.
Homepage. You want to go to individual?
You want some free landscaping? When I say free, it's value for value. You've given me value that's changed my life. Here's some value that may change the way you securitize your own damn property.
I'm at capacity. I don't know how that happens, but I'm at capacity.
Well, this is getting shitty, folks.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, Wizard,
So when
I'm
you get
real
to the
glad
Treasury
that you
Direct.gov,
came upon this
you're gonna go right
information.
here to where it says, hold on, let me move this up the way, guys. Okay. So when you're on the home page, you're gonna
Oh,
go to
wow.
individual.
Play it at
You click
normal speed, it might be a little bit better.
Individual. You're gonna go over here to the left where it says open my account. When you get to this page here, you're gonna go right here. Of course, you're gonna want to read this. It's just telling you the things that you need to have in order to open the account. You will have to link your bank account. Whatever bank account you're going to be trading your securities through is the account.
And this is the bank. You want to make sure that they have a medallion stamp banker.
Mm-hmm.
If you, there are many banks out there, but many of them do not have a medallion stamp banker. So make sure they have a medallion stamp banker in order to do this first. If they don't, ask them to get one. Otherwise, you might need to change your place of business.
And you're
that
going to
you
be
want to
doing a lot
attach
of
to this
busyness, to say the
Yep.
least.
Yep.
You get to this page, you're going to go
Private
down
banking
and
would
go
be
to
the
apply
way.
now. Because we're only doing individual accounts at the moment, the individual box is already checked for you. Now, if you were doing your trust account, then you'll go down to trust. You're doing your living estate, you'll go.
And that's what I was talking about last night. I think I went over this. If not, I meant to, because you have many different things that you can do here. And you notice the top one is business or organization, whereas the bottom one is, it's much like the four corners thing. It's a separation. These are not of the same kind. So these all five here are the same kind as known as a business or organization, but these three are different. These are estates or trust. So a deceased estate is still a trust. A living estate is still a trust, but then you have just a bare trust.
And you can do it in many venues.
Yes.
Both sides of the ledger as well. Both,
yes.
like you can click a couple up on top and a couple on the bottom, and have that many different accounts doing the same damn thing with all of the accounts.
Right. Have a trust account with both a deceased estate and a living estate, operating a partnership or a corporation of some sort. Again, remember, don't do this because I said so. Do this because you know how to. Do your research first. That means organizing under the Federal Reserve System under 12 U.S.C. 614 as a corporation, giving documents and everything to your board of trustees and what your intent is and all that.
And remember, there is a big difference. I'm not saying this for you. I'm saying it for anybody that might be listening to this or whatever, is there's a big difference between the public and the private side, and both need done properly.
Yes, absolutely.
If you are doing a Treasury Direct
It's
account
all about
for
the
your
process and the
business, you
paperwork.
will pick whatever your business entity is labeled up under. Right now, we're only doing the individual of our straw man. Yes, you can have more than one account open. I have one up for my business. I have one up for me personally, and I have one open for my trust. So I can trade securities through every last one of these accounts. When you get to that part, just hit submit. Then you will put in your personal identifying information. Where it says give an account name, that is whatever you want to name your account.
So, Wizard, would that also work with a
text
DBA?
identification number.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's why I said I'm doing the fictitious name registration. It's the same thing as the Minnesota DBA, but in Iowa. It's
Yeah,
only
I
$5.
suppose. Yeah, I suppose. I instead I think it's like 300 for the
Right, and
Minnesota.
that's
You're talking about Minnesota Rule 220?
right. And all it's doing is giving you a in good standing capacity to
Yep.
operate in the business world. And again, it's a matter of representative. When you use
Right.
that good standing and qualify the signatures and stuff, the paperwork itself will show that it's in good standing because the process is being instructed properly by the proper kind of person on the proper side of the counter to another person that's supposed to do it, and then finalizes the transaction so everything's current.
Right. Currently, I see.
That will be your social
Currency.
security number. The rest of the information is your own personal information.
Just as emergent is to emergency, current is to currency.
This is where you'll add your bank. You will check the box there and you will hit submit. It will give you your account number and an email immediately. That is how you open up your Treasury Direct account. There's a lot of useful information on the back of this page. There is also another spot that will tell you once you open up your account where it'll say sales securities, they will give you a routing number and your account number that you are to direct your bank to wire your securities through. Yes, and that does even include your green dollars. As we've been calling them Federal Reserve notes, they are actually floating rate notes. The reason they're called floating rate notes is because the rates float every single day. And when I say that the bank is getting over on us with that 0.1%, and the lowest amount that I've seen traded, oh wow, the lowest amount that I've seen traded is 4.52% on a daily average. Let me see. The 0% certificate of indebtedness. Please get familiar with this page. Understand what that means. So we all know that the banks is getting over on us, but we're trying to figure out how and nothing is being done. That is because our promissory notes are considered 0% certificates of indebtedness. 0% certificates of indebtedness do not have to be registered with the Security Exchange. This is how they're committing fraud without getting in trouble. They don't have to be registered. Not just that, every company is listed as a foreign limited liability company. What makes them foreign, let's say you open up your original business in Atlanta, you go open up the same business in Maryland. Maryland is considered the foreign, you'll be considered a foreign limited liability company. It doesn't mean that they're in another country. So they count all of our promissory notes as 0% certificates of indebtedness. The good thing about that is that when you start depositing your promissory notes, it takes 24 hours for that 2 times the payout. It doesn't gain any interest on the promissory note, but it'll get paid out in 24 hours. So these people that's out here doing 1099 A's, we don't do the A's or the OIDs that end you in jail, and they talk about it takes 60 days, it does not. If it is done through the bank as it is supposed to be done through their electronic system, it takes 24 hours for you to get a payout. Okay. So that's the Treasury Direct. And how you open it. I got people waiting, but I'm at capacity. I don't know how I got into capacity. Somebody must be here, ain't supposed to, but hey, it is what it is. So that is how you use your promissory note to get your debt paid off. If you have a promissory note that you are sending, you're going to also add a 1099-C in the envelope with your promissory note. And I'm going to pull one up and show you guys the area that you are to fill out.
Goodness, I've been speaking on mute again. We'll go ahead and finish it up for tonight. And start again tomorrow with the 1099 UCC form. And I think what I'll do is I've got a class in the morning from 10 till about 1 o'clock, and I'll go ahead and set something up for like 3 to maybe 5 or 6 or something in a second part, and hopefully it'll work better for us tomorrow. And then another one from 9 to like maybe midnight or something. But it's a matter of a lot of information here. Again, though, the link is down in the details section. I would suggest that you go ahead and start watching it on your own free time. And like I said, I put the StreamYard link down there for people that want to come up and discuss it. I like the objective views other than my own, so that we can come to a better comprehension of how this works. And then, of course, forward that out into the communities so that other people can take advantage of this information. So with that, I want to remind you, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's to say, I don't care if you hate me. So make sure that God blesses you, and have a good night.
We have the footage.